Well, welcome, folks. I wish I could see your names and know a little bit more about you. But I do hope that this presentation helps you to naturally improve your digestion. And as you know, and I think you know who I am, or you wouldn't be here. And there's plenty of links to me on the side, so I'm going to spare you from any introduction. I'm easy to find more information about here. But I am in Ojai, California. It's sunny here. There's children outside playing, and we're having a beautiful day here. Um, and you're welcome to contact me after this webinar if you'd like some personal help on improving your health or any health condition. Um, but I want to say that in Ayurveda, which is my main practice here, that we don't treat the disease, we treat the person. And so whatever condition a person has, say a person comes, a client comes to me and they have, joint pain, or they have, well, they could say arthritis or fibromyalgia or high blood pressure, any type of chronic health condition, then in Ayurveda, we don't directly treat just that particular condition. We're treating the person holistically. We treat the person, not the individual. And where do we start in Ayurveda when we're treating the person? We start with the digestion. Because if the digestion isn't strong and robust, then there's not good absorption of nutrients. If you're not absorbing nutrients, then you're not getting what your body needs um, to function properly. So this really has to be the starting point. And of course, part of digestion is elimination. It's really a separate subject. Um, uh, Proper bowel movements, proper hydration of the body, and elimination of these liquids is also critical because the body is continually eliminating and detoxifying as a result of its many metabolic processes. So that detoxification and elimination is part of digestion, because when digestion is poor, then this can adversely affect elimination. So like I said in the beginning, if a person comes to me, or a client comes to me with any type of health condition, or any Ayurvedic practitioner, we're going to address the person holistically, and we're going to start with digestion. So people are often very surprised. They come to me with joint pain or high blood pressure or cholesterol or anxiety, and I often start with the basics: improving the digestion, improving the elimination, improving the sleep, these fundamental aspects that are important for a person to be healthy. Then we can address the main tissue, the main systems, and ultimately we can address the symptoms even that the person has to bring them comfort and relief. But to recover from a condition, you have to have good digestion. Without it, you're not going to recover from any condition. So this is really a very, very a critical point. And so then the next question comes: what is good digestion? And of course, this is not very clearly understood, I believe, in our Western practice of what is good digestion. Even what is good elimination is not very well understood. Many people think their bowel movements are normal. If you ask a person, what are your bowel movements? They say normal. Well, of course it's normal. How many people's bowel movements have you observed? So for them, it's normal, And believe me, after speaking with thousands of patients over the years, you find that nobody has the same situation. Some people having 3, 4, 5 movements a day that could be loose, and other people have one a day. Some are very dry, and some lead towards constipation. Some leads towards diarrhea. So, there's really no such thing as normal. I mean, there is what would be considered healthy, and that would be, up to 2 bowel movements a day, 2 or 3 well-formed bowel movements that are not too dry. But as far as digestion, the question would be, what is healthy digestion? Well, healthy digestion, from Ayurvedic terms, Ayurveda clearly defines many types of digestive imbalances. And what is healthy digestion. So healthy digestion is first to have an appetite. That's correct. And that means if you're not hungry and you can go till 3 in the afternoon and not eat, this is not considered a healthy digestion. Manda Agni or low fire, weak digestion. And this leads to toxicity and accumulation of amar or undigested food that creates congestion in the system and ultimately leads to disease. Um, so just right there, having weak digestion means no appetite, not having much hunger, and often eating when not hungry. This is considered a quite poor digestion, and leads to toxic accumulation in the body and slowness, heaviness, um, poor absorption of nutrients, congestion, and ultimately fatigue due to the poor absorption of food. This type of malnourishment, malabsorption that takes place when you don't have this fire, this we call Agni, this ability to digest your food. Think of your digestive system not just from anatomy point of view, the stomach, the duodenum, the small intestine, the colon, but think of it as a stove and needs to cook the food. So if it's not hot, you're not going to cook the food. You don't put the food in a cold oven and then turn it on. It's too late. You have to warm it up first. And that's what good fire means. And this is very confusing to people who are trying to lose weight, for example. They think, well, I don't understand why I keep putting on weight. I'm not even that hungry. I don't even eat that much. Well, that's your answer right there why you're putting on weight, because you have weak digestion and the fire needs to start. And I'm going to tell you how to do that at home. I'm going to give you some tips to get this digestive fire stronger. So this is very important. Sorry about the phone call there. Hopefully it's probably somebody calling looking to figure out how to get on Google Hangouts. But so the other types of poor digestion would be too strong of a digestive fire. And this also is a problem. And this is people with a strong appetite, acidity, heartburn, and this also leads to loose stools, a poor absorption of nutrients, and eventually a fatigue. When you have, and this is more of a pitta problem of those who are pitta dominant body type, and these people are very hungry, and often they're athletes and exercising and doing a lot of different types of physical activity, which warrants eating the food. So they may not even be putting on much weight, even though they're eating so much, because they're going to the gym, they're exercising, they're physically active, and they have this very strong appetite. And it's really a burning appetite. And often these people will have a heartburn, acid reflux, and other types of similar feelings. And it's relieved by eating. So this is the appetite in this case is too strong. The fire's too high. It needs to be cooled down. And again, I'm going to give you some home remedies and some things that you can do to, reduce this fire, cool down the fire. So those are the two main ones there. The weak appetite, where you have poor digestion due to no fire, no Agni, and then the too strong of digestive fire, where you have the burning and this overly strong appetite. So those are two. And then the other one is more of a variable, weak appetite. I would like to correct myself. I really want to go back to the first one. We could just say is slow digestion. I don't want to say weak, but slow. And now the third type is more of a variable and weak, means sensitive. It means there's some appetite there, but it's not consistent. They can't eat much. They just eat a little bit, and then they feel full. Then in a couple hours, they need to eat a little bit more. So it's kind of a finicky appetite. It's not too strong. It's not too low. It's kind of weak. It's not robust appetite. And these type of people, they don't quite have enough fire, but they need to eat, and the signs are they get a lot of gas and bloating. So those would be the three types in Ayurveda that are referred to: kind of a low appetite, too high of an appetite, and a weak appetite. The low appetite is evident by no appetite, or we could say low digestion, and the strong too high of an appetite is represented by this fire, this burning, this intense hunger, and then the weak is by this sensitive and picky type of digestive state with a lot of gas and bloating. So those would be the three categories. And what we want is to have the hunger and then be able to enjoy the food, digest it well, and then not have cravings and needs for more food for another 4 or 5 hours, because our body was efficient enough to be able to digest the food and take the nutrients from the food, that we're able to sustain ourselves and on that food. So this is why digestion is more important than nutrition, because you could be eating the best foods, and I'm up here in Ojai, where a lot of organic farmers and a lot of organic food here, and people come to me all the time and say, well, I'm eating all organic, but I'm just getting gas and bloating and constipation and burping and all kinds of signs. But I remind them, eating quality food has nothing to do with a good digestion. Of course, it's helpful in many other ways, but this is a separate subject, having good digestion. And even people who are taking supplements, these supplements need to be digested. It's another subject, talking about supplementation. But and there's good supplementation, and there's harmful or low quality supplementation. But in either case, even food-based supplements like spirulina, chlorella, barley grass, wheat germ grass, spinach powder, beetroot powder, many of these concentrated foods still need to be digested. So without digestion, you're going to have difficulty of getting your nutrients, no matter how high quality the food is, or even how much supplements you take. Often I see people who started on a healthy diet from maybe poor food, eating McDonald's and just eating poorly, and then suddenly they decide they're going to start juicing and eating well, and they do a lot of juicing, and then they come to me after a few months and they say, at first I felt much better, but now, I'm getting gas, bloating. And I ask them, do you feel hungry? And they go, no. And I go, do you used to feel hungry in the morning? I go, yeah, I was eating all the time. I was eating junk food, everything. And since I started juicing, I just don't even feel hungry until noon. And then, I feel good when I do my juice, but then I get gas, I get bloating, and then I got to eat later, and I have nuts. So what's happened in many of these cases is, and why Ayurveda doesn't advocate this amount of juicing, is that it's cold. It's a liquid, cold liquid, and you're putting out your digestive fire. And people who do a lot of juicing, their appetite goes down for food, and heavy foods and solid foods, and then they can't digest heavy foods like wheat and dairy and nuts, and they have more and more difficulty because their digestive fire diminished. And that really leads me to another very good point, that many people say, oh, I can't digest wheat, oh, I can't digest dairy. But I say, let's not blame the cow, and let's not blame the grain. It's assuming you're eating some good quality sprouted wheat, and hopefully at least some organic milk, or better, some raw milk. So let's not blame these foods right off the bat. Let's look at your digestion first, because most people who can't digest dairy and can't digest wheat aren't lactose intolerant or gluten intolerant. They just don't have the digestive capacity anymore to digest it. And you can just ask them, well, what about 5 years ago? Were you eating wheat? And go, yeah, I was eating pizza, I was eating wheat, no problem. And then and of course, they started this healthy diet and started juicing, and then now they can't even digest wheat. And I'm not advocating pizza, but hey, every once in a while, at least I can digest it if I have to. And that's when you have the Agni, when you have the fire to digest it. So what you want is, you want this strong digestive fire to digest your food. and not have it too strong so it's burning and you overeat, and not have it too low that you've snuffed out your fire and you don't even feel like eating until 3 in the afternoon. So, so now I think we have an idea of some of the unhealthy digestive states. So let's talk a little bit about some of the remedies. So the first remedy is really, and we're talking about home remedies here, not herbal treatments. You know, here I have a lot of herbs in my clinic, and you know, I have all my teas and my products there. So we're going to try to do this without, you know, using herbs, just home remedies, which really it's easier with herbs. I can give you an herb to take before the meal to stimulate your appetite, or I can give you an herb before and after the meal to cool down your appetite if it's too hot. And I can give you an herb to take during the meal to help you digest it. So, you know, giving out herbs before, during, and after meals really is the easy way to improve somebody's digestion. And this is typical Ayurvedic. And some of these herbs are just simply spices, and you can use the similar spices at home. I'm going to talk a little bit later. I just want to keep you all entertained here. I'm going to talk about using some of these spices at home to improve your digestion. But first, I want to make a very important point, and that is eating habits. Eating habits are equally important, if not more important than the foods you eat. And here, I think in our modern world, we should say, we have a lot of poor eating habits. Let's face it, it's not like grandma's days when we're living on a farm, eating 3 clean meals a day. No, we've got snacks all around us. At the office, we've got donuts and food and snacks everywhere, and we're driving the car, eating snacks. And I would say this snacking is probably one of the worst habits for digestion. And if any of you have been my clients, you know that I teach this to everybody. And if you've read my testimonials, you'll see that people are always surprised that by just improving their eating habits and eating at a regular time and being consistent and not snacking in between and letting the digestive fire come up and not being afraid of being a little hungry until your next meal will help you tremendously. I think we've become a little weak nowadays in that we get a little hunger in us, and you know, we got to go eat something. You know, if we're unhealthy, we're just going to go to get a donut, and if we're healthy, well, we're just going to go get an expensive protein bar from Whole Foods. But the effect is the same. We're taking away our digestive capacity, which, you know, we could define in terms of, you know, stomach acids and peptic acids and hydrochloric acids and bile and enzymes. But this is your capacity to digest food, and you really only have so much in the day. And if you keep throwing in protein bars and donuts and nuts, which are very hard to digest, you know, nuts do not make a very good snack unless you have a very strong appetite. You know, like children, you know, they do better on nuts. They have stronger appetite. They're not as congested as we are. Okay. But even if you think back to, you know, grandma did not like their children to eat nuts 2 hours before a meal because she knew that it would ruin their appetite. But we're all ruining our appetite every single day by this snacking. So the first thing to really do, and if you've got a pad of paper, I'd encourage you to write this down, is, you know, stop snacking all the time on cookies, crackers, and particularly nuts between meals, especially if you don't have a very strong or you have a weak appetite. This will help your digestion tremendously. Second, sticking to a schedule, eating around the same time every day. This will train your system. You know, I have dogs, cats, pets, chickens, and even a horse. So, you know, I'm feeding animals, and you know, animals all need to be fed around the same time. And they generally like to be eat around the same time, and they get hungry around the same time. But us humans, oh, we're eating all different times. So our poor digestive system never knows when the food's coming. And it's a cycle, you know, everything's a cycle, just like we have serotonin and melatonin and cycles, and you know, women have hormonal cycles, and I think us men have some cycles going too. But definitely the digestive system is in a cycle of, creating the stomach acids coming out and the hunger increasing, and then we uh, uh, digest that food in our stomach, and then it moves to the duodenum where the bile comes out, which was made by the liver, and then it goes through the small intestines to get the nutrients, and then goes sits in the colon, and then the whole cycle starts again. And the hunger increases, and the appetite increases again, and we can go through. So, but it takes about 3 or 4 hours between this cycle to be able to be ready for the next meal. That's 3 or 4 hours, and really it could be as long as 5 hours for some people. Now, of course, if you're familiar with your body type and your doshic, uh, uh, your prakriti or your vikriti, or at least your dominant dosha like vata, pitta, or kapha, this will help you tremendously, because the kapha has the manda agni, the slow and low digestive system, and the pitta has the strong and hot digestive system, and the vata has the variable and digestive system. So, and weak, we could say. So for the vata who's, say, thin and underweight, well, they can do 4 meals a day. But these should be paced out. If you're a thin person, you're only 100 pounds or something like this, you feel you're a little underweight, or, and many vata women are underweight, even though they appear to look great. From a picture point of view, Ayurveda would advocate probably a little more weight on a lot of vata women there, a few more pounds. This will improve their sleep, their anxiety, their mood, and many factors. So, many vata people, particularly women who are concerned about their weight, are a little underweight. So they do better on 4 meals a day. And this vata type, they like to snack. They need food. They don't have any extra body weight. They don't have body fat in particular. And they tend to not have a strong digestive system and a sensitive digestive system. So they like to have a little bit and during the day, all through the day. Or we could call it grazing, like the cow with the double stomach. But unfortunately, we don't have this double stomach. We have a cycle. So this grazing only makes this vata type have worse digestion. So this vata can have type can have this sensitive, thin, cold, dry type of person can have 4 meals a day, and put about 3 hours between each meal. So you could have meal at 8, meal another meal at say 12, then a snack at 3, and then dinner at 6. So you're spacing them out about 3 or 4 hours, and in between these you could have some specific fruits and easy to digest things to keep you going. So why fruits? People ask me. Why not nuts? Nuts are healthy. Well, nuts are healthy, but they're hard to digest. They got fat, which requires bile. They got protein, which requires a lot of stomach acids, and they're very hard. And we often don't chew them enough or swallow them. So this is very tough on the digestive system. Even particularly if you're driving a car, talking on the phone, and throwing in nuts at the same time, you're not going to be hungry for dinner. Then you're going to eat late at night, and you can eat late at night. There's just not enough time to digest it. So you're going to go to sleep with undigested food inside you. Then you're not going to be hungry in the morning. And then, the whole cycle begins or continues, and this will put on weight. So for the vata type, 4 meals a thin, underweight vata type, 4 meals a day with 3 to 4 hours between each meal with some sweet, juicy fruits in between. Now, for the pitta type, who's more muscular, strong, warm, with a strong appetite, they can do very good on 3 larger meals a day. And after meals, they should have some cooling herbs, or like fennel. Fennel is very good after meals, and you can see it's in Indian restaurants. And you take it's a sweet spice, and you have some of this fennel after your meal. If you're this person with a strong appetite, burning and cessation, or you're a pitta type who has this tendency to be very hungry. These type of people, they wake up in the morning and they're very hungry, and they need to eat a good sized breakfast in the morning. And then the problem is, they get hungry again before the next meal. So that's where this fennel and sweet cooling herbs will help. We'll talk a little bit more about some spices and herbs that you can use later on. So I'm talking about right now the eating on a schedule, and I'm talking about 3 separate schedules for the thin person. About the type, 4 meals a day, 3 or 4 hours apart. The pitta, about 3 to, the 4 hours apart. And now for the kapha, then the kapha type tends to have the weakest appetite, or we could just say low appetite. They're not hungry. They don't need breakfast. They don't like breakfast. So nobody's going to make you eat breakfast. I mean, if you're a kapha type, you're a little heavy, a little slow, a lot more mucus and phlegm, we call it kapha, in the stomach. So you don't have as much appetite in the morning, and you've got a lot of extra body weight, so you're just fine without food. So that's fine. You don't need to have breakfast. You can have a very light breakfast. You could have a cup of ginger tea or an apple, or some stir fry onions and greens, or something very light for breakfast. But when lunch comes around, which should be the main meal of the day for most people, because this is the key, our appetite should be the strongest in the midday, then this kapha type should eat. If they're not hungry, then they can stimulate the appetite with ginger and other spices. And this type of person often is craving spices. And you ask this person who has very low appetite, they're not hungry, do you like spicy food? And they say, I love spicy food. So they need the spice. The body's always craving to a large degree what it needs. I mean, there are unhealthy cravings, but if you read the cravings correctly, you can understand what a person needs both nutritionally and metabolically to help improve digestion. And this type of person that has low appetite, a low digestive fire, they like spices. And that's exactly what they need to get that fire going. To have ginger tea before the meal, even get some ginger, a little slice of ginger, and chew on it. You can even touch a little bit to a little salt, and squeeze a little lemon on it. This is the Ayurvedic method, is a little more complicated. And chew on this before the meal. Even just dried ginger powder, mix it with pepper and ginger together, and put some in your mouth before a meal, and keep. This stimulates the appetite. See, what Ayurveda does is they want to control the appetite, to get the appetite strong but not too strong. And they don't believe, of course, in this type of replacement therapy, which is taking enzymes. We know Bernard Jensen, who was a big advocate of enzymes, later in his life did confess that he was addicted to enzymes, and he had to take them with every meal, 5, 6 capsules of enzymes with every meal, because his body stopped making them because he was taking them. So taking enzymes is, it could help give you relief if you had pain and serious digestive problems, but you're not solving your digestive problem by taking enzymes. You're just going to create a dependency on the enzymes. What spice is doing, and again, I'll show my little plate of spice there. What spice does is spice stimulates digestive enzymes, and some spices stimulate stomach acids. And this is why we have a lot of digestive problems. One of the reasons we have a lot of digestive problems in our modern world is because we stopped having spices. So I think that if you're taking notes, the first thing I ask you to write down was stop snacking between meals and pace your meals out in either of those 3 categories that I mentioned. But in either any category, there's space between the meal and only some fruit between the meal, because fruit's easy to digest and doesn't use up your digestive capacity. Now, the second point I want you to write down is to use more spices in your cooking. And again, we have to break that down into the 3 types. The Vata type, who's the most sensitive and gets the gas and bloating easy, and they do very good with cumin. It's probably the best, but ginger to warm up their digestive system. Because one reason Vata types have a poor digestion is because they themselves are cold. So by warming up the body through spices with ginger tea before the meal, then you'll find their digestion is much better. And when you cook, you have turmeric, ginger in the meal, and even a little pepper. And this will stimulate the appetite and make it much easier for the a body to digest. And in fact, we now know that this is not just stimulating appetite, but it's stimulating acids in the stomach. It's stimulating enzymes from the pancreas, and even helping to increase the bile. So spice is very important to improve your appetite and to increase it. If you're the kapha type and you have low appetite, means you're just not hungry at all, then you need hotter spices. For example, if you're a kapha type and you're not eating until 3 in the afternoon, I'll tell you, wake up in the morning, have a glass of apple cider vinegar, which is acidic and going to clean out the mucus and congestion in your stomach, and put a pinch of cayenne in it. Well, that cayenne is going to stimulate your whole system. And when people start doing that at 7, 8 in the morning, they're getting hungry by 10 o'clock. And that's very good for the kapha type, this apple cider vinegar in the morning. And then, of course, when they have the meals, they can use more cayenne, more spice, more black pepper, ginger. These will all make it easier to digest the food and keep the appetite strong so you can enjoy the food. I always say to my patients, if you don't have appetite, you don't have fire. If you don't have fire, you've lost your fire, you've lost your oomph. And the fire is related to your appetite, your zest for life, your libido. These all go together. So when you lost your fire, it's no fun. You just, people don't look sexy, food doesn't look good, and you don't have that motivation in life to achieve and accomplish. So you want to get that fire going. So if you're a person who's cold and you don't have much hunger, then this means you have low fire. You want to get it going. And spices, hot, spicy spices are the way to go. Apple cider vinegar with a pinch of cayenne in it early in the morning, that'll get your fire going. And then drinking ginger tea right before a meal, and even sipping ginger tea during the meal will help. So the other type is the pitta type, the type who has too strong of a digestive fire, too much burning, and feels the acidity and even coming up the esophagus, and has tendency to acid reflux and needs to eat. Well, these people, they have good fire and they can usually digest wheat, dairy, no problem, because their digestive system's so strong. And in fact, they're very strong, so they do better with things that are a little cooling. Like I mentioned earlier, cooling spices like a fennel. They can cook with fennel. Coriander, see the coriander there? Coriander is a cool spice. I mean, vatas can have it too, but pittas like it. It's a very mild spice. And dill, you can cook your rice with dill. It's a nice, pleasant spice that adds a little flavor to your rice, and it helps the pitta to digest better without overstimulating the digestive system. Oh, here's mustard seed too. Mustard seed is very good for the kapha. You can cook your rice with mustard seed and make your spices with mustard seed to help your digestion. But to stay on the pitta type, the person with a too strong of an appetite, too much burning, too much acidity, they need to eat cooling things. And these are the people that like salads. And these are the people that do better with juicing, in fact, because in between meals, they can juice. I had some patients talk to each other, and they said, well, how come you told my friend to stop juicing and you told me to juice? Well, I said, well, because your friend had no appetite, no hunger. They weren't eating. They were skipping meals. So the juice was cooling down their whole system and putting out their appetite. But for the particular person I was speaking to, they had too strong of an appetite, too burning, hungry. So I told them to have a vegetable juice between the meals to keep the appetite down and cool. And often we find, if we're on Facebook and reading around, everybody's advocating what worked for them. So, somebody who has a strong burning digestive system, find that juicing helped them a lot, so they tell everybody to juice. People who have low appetite and tell everybody to have apple cider vinegar. So everybody's out there preaching what worked for them and assuming that it's going to work for everybody else, but that's not the case. People are very complex and very unique, and our digestive systems not only are distinctly different, but we go through changes. I mean, our digestive system can change through the seasons. When it's hotter out, we tend to have stronger digestive fire and don't need as much food. And when it's colder, we tend to eat more and we need different types of food even. So, our digestive system is changing throughout the year, and, even our emotions can affect the state of our digestive system. If we're in cortisol releases and we're too stressed out, then, the digestive system practically shuts down and you don't digest very well. So people who are highly stressed have poor digestion. So other indications of poor digestion, I would say, are gas and a bloating. And I'm going to describe why we have these. Not the pretty subject talking about gas. And we all have a certain amount of gas every day, and we get some gas just naturally through the when the bacteria in the colon uh, uh, not really digest the food, but it kind of starts to break down the remaining chyme or fecal matter in the colon. And this creates some hydrogen and some gas that we all have. But why do sometimes we have more, and why do some people have a lot, and why does it sometimes it's we have more than other times? Well, first let's say it's a sign of not good digestion, a lot of gas. We're assuming you're not eating fast and swallowing air, which is another problem, with digestion. It's just not chewing our food properly. We should always chew our food properly, sit down and eat, don't stand and eat. In fact, in Ayurveda, they say, you want to die early, stand and eat. So, I haven't tested that out. I don't know for sure if it's going to kill you earlier, but I think it's the point's made. You need to sit down, you need to relax, you need to eat slowly. A teacher in India once made me put down I was in his house eating quite quickly, and he told me each time I take a bite to put the spoon down. They use spoons more than forks, and then chew the food. He said take a 20 chews before you swallow the food. So that really slowed me down, and I can't say I do that all the time, but it is very important. And if you see a lot of pieces of food in your stool, then you know you're swallowing your food instead of chewing your food. So it's really quite clear, when you look at your own stool, what you really should do, because looking at your stool is the proof of your digestion. I mean, if and we don't need to get into that too much, it's a whole nother subject, but if you see a lot of pieces in there, then this is not good. If it's fine and smooth and it looks well digested, then it's well digested. If you see a lot of pieces and clumps and you see your goji berry still in there, and then you know that you were swallowing your goji berry and not chewing it, which many people do. So you have to chew your food properly and sit down and eat slowly. So eating while driving, eating while standing, eating while talking, eating while stressed out will adversely affect your digestion. But back to gas. So, and all of those things I just mentioned will create more gas because you're not allowing the digestive system to digest properly. But in fact, this gas is coming from the bacteria in your colon, and often it's the unhealthy bacteria that are creating all the gas. Apparently, the healthy bacteria, the good guys we could call, they're breaking down our fecal matter in our colon there, and they don't create as much gas. But once you have the unhealthy bacteria in your colon, well, these guys create a lot more gas. It's kind of like the car mechanic sees the car going down the road and he sees the smoke coming out the back and he knows it's not running good, but the person driving doesn't really notice. Well, that's the same for somebody who has a lot of gas. I mean, it means the engine's not running good, and you're running, but you're not burning the fuel completely. And so, obviously, taking a type of probiotic for the Vata type, you could do some yogurt with each meal. And for the Pitta type, you could do some like a kefir. And for the Kapha type, you could do fermented vegetables. Of course, everything is very unique and Ayurveda, and everybody's distinct. So, one fermented food doesn't work for another. I generally don't advocate taking expensive probiotics. You could take them initially, but you have to remember that once you have the healthy intestinal flora in your colon, you don't need to take it every single day. I mean, they live down there. So once you have healthy intestinal flora, if you have to keep taking probiotics every day to feel comfortable, you have to wonder something's not right. And in fact, in Ayurveda, since they're trying to address the colon, they directly use like an enema and put yogurt, make homemade yogurt and mix it with some water, put it in an enema bag, put it in the colon. Bam, you've got the healthy intestinal flora right there in the colon, and this will help quite quickly. Vata types, they often do a buttermilk. You get a half cup of yogurt, half cup of water, put a little cumin in it, a little pinch of salt, blend it up, drink that 2-3 times a day between the meals, and you'll find your intestinal flora will improve quite quickly, and the gas will diminish. And that bloating or distension, where your abdominal area descends out or expands, this is that gas as well. And there can be many reasons for it besides just not proper intestinal flora. So you really have to analyze it because it could just be poor food combining, which is a whole nother subject by itself, food combining. But for example, mixing blueberries with yogurt, this is poor food combining. And even having fruit after meals, this is also can create a lot of gas and bloating. Many people have come to me with gas and bloating concerns, and I just told them, don't have the fruit after the meals, wait an hour and then have your fruit. And this eliminated the gas. And the reason is because, say you had some rice or some grains and some other protein, and then it's still sitting in your stomach, and then you have the fruit, you throw the fruit right on top, and fruit really can pass right through the stomach. It doesn't need stomach acids, doesn't need bile. I mean, it goes quite quickly, but it can't go quickly because it just ran right into your undigested protein sitting in your stomach. So what does it do is it just starts fermenting. So this fermentation is creating the gas. So that's another very common reason for gas and bloating is poor food combining. And this should be understood by people. Now, the Vata type is the most sensitive, so they have the most issue with this. And the Pitta, who has a strong fire, they tend to not have as much issues with food combining because they have the digestive fire to do it. The other reason we can have a weak digestion, like I said earlier, is the system is too cold. So you need to warm the body up with spices prior to the meal. So there's a few tips for you. Again, chewing ginger before the meal to get the appetite going, having fennel after the meal to cool the appetite down, having buttermilk between the meals if your intestinal flora is poor. And of course, let me give you another little clue to let you know if you have good intestinal flora, and that is, unfortunately, you got to look at your stool again, and that will be the proof. If you look at the stool and it's sticky and dense, then you don't have healthy intestinal bacteria in your colon, because this bacteria is getting into your fecal matter, into your colon, and breaking it down, not really digesting it. There's some mineral absorption at that level, but it's making it fluffy. So when you have fluffy stools, then you probably have good intestinal flora in your colon. And if you have sticky stools and dense stools, you don't have enough healthy bacteria in your colon. And if you have these sticky stools plus a lot of gas and bloating, you probably have the bad bacteria in your colon. So that's a two-prong approach. You have to take the healthy intestinal flora, and maybe if you have it systemic with yeast infections in your toe or the vaginal area, then you may have to take some tea or some antifungal product to reduce down the unhealthy intestinal flora, or often called Candida. It's just really one type, and then replenish it with the healthy intestinal flora. But it's another good point. Why do people keep getting this reoccurring Candida, which is a digestive problem? And that is often because of poor liver function, poor bile. If we look at anatomy, when we think anatomy, and we understand why this bacteria from the colon doesn't come creeping up the small intestines and right up our esophagus and right to our mouth and all the time, is because we have bile coming out at the duodenum, the top of the small intestinal tract, and this bile is very alkalining, and it basically kills this bacteria and prevents it from coming up the small intestines and having this type of intestinal overgrowth. So, in fact, many people who have this Candida and keep having it reoccurring, the problem's going back to their liver. They have liver congestion and poor bile output. So you give them a liver tea, or you could just make a dandelion tea, some milk thistle, and some burdock root. I mean, these are all teas that I have right there on the shelf, ready to go, because they're very useful. And you take this liver tea before the meals, and this will help to stimulate the liver, stimulate more bile, and this will help to kill off your unhealthy intestinal bacteria in your small intestines and improve and strengthen your digestion, because you need the liver to produce the bile, and you need that gallbladder to release it. And that's another problem with snacking all day, is you end up using up all your bile, and then when it comes to dinner time, you've got no capacity left to have dinner, and then you just have a little dinner, and then you get hungry later because you didn't have enough food, and then you eat at night, and eating at night, of course, leaves you with undigested food because you need time to digest it. And this creates a vicious cycle. So there's actually a few vicious cycles in digestion, which I've covered. One is this snacking all the time on little amounts, and then you don't have an appetite to eat big amount because you don't have a gap. So between the meals, so you have to control yourself. You have to realize that it's okay to be a little hungry, and it's not going to kill you to wait 3 hours for the next meal, and wait until it comes. So your digestive fire is there, and you can enjoy the meal and digest it properly and feel satisfied after the meal. And if you're a coffee type who's overweight, well, if you're 10 pounds overweight, then you probably could last a couple weeks without food. So surely you'll make it until dinner time with only an apple and some tea, and keep drinking some liquids. Because remember, liquids will kind of put out your digestive fire, so you can always put that out. And if you have too strong of a digestive fire, then sweet fruits and cool juices and fruit juices and vegetable juices and even milk can put out this digestive fire and keep your appetite down, so you can then control it. So in a way, you're trying to train your body to be hungry at certain times, not overeat, not be snacking and grazing all the time, not be eating at night, not be mixing too many foods together, and mixing fruits and vegetables together in smoothies is not a good idea. There's a few exceptions. You can put a little apple, tends not to bother mixing with vegetables, but throwing kale and banana together is not good food combining, and you're going to have some gas and abdominal discomfort from this. And too much cold drink foods, leftover foods, cold foods, this will diminish your digestive capacity and make your digestion weaker over time. So I hope you got some tips there. Those are kind of household tips, eating habits, and using spices. And I hope that helped you improve your digestion. And that's really the first step, no matter what health condition you have. Fine tune your digestion and get it just right first. And then, then make sure you're eliminating there too. I mean, if you're eating 3 times a day, that's 3 going in. So look for at least 2 coming out the other end, or you're constipated. 1 coming out the other end means there's a little log jam there, buildup. So, that's a form of constipation, and you want to keep that going too. And we'll talk about that in future classes. So I want to thank everybody. If you're capable of chatting back, you can, but I don't see anybody chatting there. I'm able to chat, but and if you have any health concerns, feel free to contact me. And of course, if you go to my website, I have a health assessment form, which is quite long, 10 pages, and it's based on Ayurveda. And if you fill that whole form out, then you could call me up and say, well, what do you think? And I'll give you my feedback, because I'm looking at your information, and I can understand many of your health problems by this form. And of course, if you come to my clinic here in Ojai, I don't need as much paperwork done. I can feel your pulse, look at your tongue. And the tongue reveals a lot about your digestion, your elimination. And your pulse can also tell me a lot about your liver function, your pancreas, your gallbladder, your stomach acids, and So then I can advise you on which foods are best for you, how to improve your digestion, how to get the elimination going, and then we can address your individual health concerns with herbal treatments and other natural therapies. So feel free to contact me. I wish you the best of health. I wish you a good rest of the day. And please contact me if you'd like more information about my services. Once again, thank you very much for joining me in this live broadcast.